Hello, my little darklings. This is your host, Deimos. Welcome back to the dark. In tonight's story, a little creepypasta I like to call Scared to Death. Computer glitches, viruses, bugs, they've all become part of our life today. And then there's the alerts that startle you out of your concentration. Sometimes it's an Amber Alert, sometimes it can be a warning from the Wireless Emergency Alert System, simply known as the WEA. What happens when one of these alerts takes you someplace it shouldn't? What happens when it takes you someplace dark? Scared to death. Run as you may, run as you might. It's not come to play, it's come to fight. It's come to slay, its weapon is fright. You might want to pray you don't die tonight. I received a WEA emergency alert, and only 12 other people seem to have received it. The alert appeared on my work phone a couple of weeks ago. The weird thing is, no one that I work with got it except me. And at first I dismissed it as a glitch. That was until I clicked on the alert when I got home. When I clicked on the alert so I could clear it, the damn thing took me to a chat room. Man, this thing really is glitching, I thought. Just then another thought occurred to me. Maybe this is a phishing scam or a virus. It wasn't. I noticed there were 12 other names in the chat room. Lucky 13, I said jokingly. But no one was talking. The only text on the screen was the people's names and a link that was posted. It had no username next to it, it was just there. I tried asking what this was all about, but there was no reply. Curiosity got the better of me and I clicked on the link. I swear I was just clicking it when a reply came up from a user named Jose Vallarta. Don't click the link. Great, I thought. I sat there for a moment wondering what I just unleashed on my phone, but there was only an audio file. Resisting the urge to press play, I closed the window and restarted my phone. After going through my phone, it seemed as if everything was in working order. I didn't keep any personal info on it since it was my work phone. I figured it was good, and if it started acting up later, I could just take it to the IT department. I had put the thought out of my mind until the chat room window opened up on my phone with a PIP window containing the audio file. The hell, I thought? Well, I guess I'll have to call the IT department after all. Once again, my curiosity nagged at me to push play. I figured the phone was going to be swapped out for a new one anyway. I was already going to hear about it for clicking on an unknown link in the first place. In my defense, the alert was from the WEA. Unable to resist, I pushed the play button on the audio file, an act that I now regret with every fiber of my being. It wasn't just audio, or maybe the audio was causing visual hallucinations. I'm not certain. Hell, I'm not sure of a lot right now. What happened next is still kind of a blur, but I remember enough to be certain it was real. At least I think I do. Like I said, I'm not sure of a whole lot right now. The colors, I can still see them in my mind. It's like the images are burned into my memories. The audio started with a voice. Red. This is red. House. This is house. Man. This is man. As it continued, I had a nagging feeling that the voice wasn't human. Growing tired of the nonsensical monologue coming from my phone in a monotone but somehow alien voice, I decided to turn it off. But before I could hit the stop button, colors began swirling around my entire field of vision. It had a dizzying effect, but it was also beautiful at the same time. A sense of peace washed over me at first. There were so many colors. Some were colors I'd never seen before, colors I didn't recognize. Without warning, a hole in the colors opened up, revealing a slideshow of images. A man hanging from a noose, with his gut sliced open, and his entrails hanging down past his feet. Another man who was strapped down and appeared to be screaming. He looked as if he'd been skinned from head to toe. These images went on for a while. Exactly how long, I don't know. What I do know is no matter how badly I wanted to close my eyes and look away, I could not. There was an image of a screaming woman. She was suspended by a chain with 2 hooks that were protruding through her shoulders. She was submerged from the waist down in a 50-gallon drum. The next image was more disturbing yet. The image that followed was of the same woman, now pulled up and out of the drum. Her head hung limply, and the lower half of her body was stripped clean down to the glistening bones. It went from a single image to a sequence of images. Each was more complex and more brutal than the last. I felt as if my mind were coming undone, unhinged. I wanted to scream, but I was frozen, motionless, and unblinking. The world suddenly went black. When I became conscious of my surroundings once more, the strong coppery smell of blood filled my nostrils. My hands and face were sticky and warm. When I finally got the nerve to look down, I saw that my hands were in fact painted crimson with blood. I looked up from my hands at the world around me just coming into focus. That's when I saw the horrific scene that filled the room. A man lay on the floor with bloody sockets where his eyes had once been. His lips had been ripped off and all his teeth removed. All of his fingers were missing. I fought the urge to vomit, dropping to the floor on all fours. I was suddenly face to face with a cell phone on the floor. 13 names, including mine, Robert Keller. His phone was open to the chat room. As I stared at the screen, one of the names, Stephen Goldsmith, was suddenly followed by the words, "left the chat room." After checking the man's pockets, I found his wallet and confirmed that this man was in fact Stefan. Had I done this to him in a fugue state? I assumed this was his blood I was now saturated in, but did I actually do this to him? I could remember nothing but the colors at first. Then the images came flooding back to memory. But this time, there was no fighting the urge. I collapsed to the floor and began vomiting violently. I opened my eyes, lying in a puddle of my own vomit. Was that a finger? The urge to upchuck returned with a vengeance. I could only dry heave, having already expelled the contents of my stomach, not moments prior. God forgive me. I had killed this man and eaten the evidence. I scooped up the finger and shoved it down the garbage disposal before scrubbing my hands and face so hard I feared I might remove my own skin. I realized that my clothes were soaked in blood as well, so I removed them and placed them in a trash bag. I found some of Stefan's clothes in the closet, dressed quickly and prepared to escape this bloody scene before someone showed up. I froze at the door. I had no idea how much of my DNA I had left behind. There was only one choice in my mind. This place would have to burn. and burn it did. I had chosen a hoodie in an attempt to hide my face in case someone spotted me leaving the house. I wasn't a criminal, but I knew the police wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't believe that I'd pressed play on our anonymous audio, which caused me to hallucinate and eventually black out. They wouldn't believe that I'd woken up at a murder scene and puked up the victim's finger without any clue as to what happened or how I got there. So I destroyed the evidence and ran. I got home and immediately changed into some of my own clothes. After changing, I drove across town and discarded Stefan's clothes in a dumpster. Next, I drove to the peninsula and found a secluded bench overlooking the ocean. I thought about jumping, but I found my resolve. Something was going on, something very wrong, and I had to find the source and stop it. I just needed a place to start. The chat room. I quickly opened my phone. Of course, the chat room window was still there. I started typing furiously. What's happening? What is this? Does anyone know anything? Jose answered first. I remember seeing colors. These sick images of people being tortured. Then nothing else until your message popped up. My God, there's a dead body here. I don't know where I am or how I got here. The same thing happened to me. Do you know who it is? No sooner than I finished typing, a message popped up. Jennifer Mercer has left the chat room. Call me, came up on my screen along with a phone number. He was local, just as Stefan had been. I hesitated to push the call button after typing in his number. My hands started shaking uncontrollably. I felt cold sweat accumulating on my face and back. I wasn't sure I wanted to know anymore, but I had to. This had to stop. How long would it be before I woke up with the blood on my hands again? My thoughts were interrupted by a ding sound signifying a new message. I clicked on it as dread filled my heart. Jordan Haley has left the chat room. I briefly wondered which one of the names left in the chat room just woke up to Jordan's dead body. Pushing that thought aside, I redialed Jose's number and pushed call this time. After the third ring, Jose answered. Robert, is that you? It's Robert. Did you see another one is gone? I saw the message. Do you really think that's what it means? Yeah, the same thing happened when I woke up to Stefan's dead body, and again when you messaged about Jennifer. That was Jennifer? I'm pretty sure it was. Can we meet somewhere? I'm scared out of my mind. You're the only other person who knows anything. Yeah, meet me at the coffee shop on 24th and Central. Don't go inside, I'll pick you up out front. I wasn't sure this was a good idea, but I didn't have anything else to go on. Truth be told, I was scared shitless myself. Before leaving, I posted in the chat room. Something horrific is happening to us. We need to put our heads together and stop whatever this is. If you're still out there, I'll be monitoring the chat room for a reply. By the time I got to the coffee shop, I heard the familiar ding of a new message. Jonathan Taylor has left the chat room. I pulled up to a man standing out front of the coffee shop. Jose? Yeah, he replied nervously as he hurried into my passenger seat. He locked his door and began looking around wildly with eyes so wide I thought they would pop right out of his sockets. A disturbing thought came to mind. The thought of Jose's eyes popping out of their sockets immediately took me back to this morning, and the image of Stefan with his bloody, empty eye sockets. God, had I eaten his eyeballs too? I gagged but managed to keep it down. As we drove, Jose seemed to finally calm down enough to speak. Where are we going? Not sure yet. Do you know any of the others in the chat room? And no, the chat room is the first place I've ever even seen their names. Just when I was going to ask Jose another question, both our phones signaled a new message. Ding. Oh, come on, I shouted. Another one already? Jose looked at his phone and then at me. Jonas Carlin has left the chat room, he said quietly. We drove for about an hour in silence before the light bulb went on. I finally had an idea. I didn't know if it was a good one, but it was an idea. Jose, open up the chat room. He looked at me in disbelief. I was asking to go back to the thing that started this all. It's okay, I have a plan. He looked somewhat relieved at the news. I just hoped he felt the same way after he found out what my plan was. I began explaining what was going to happen next. This part he didn't like so much, but he listened and shared his thoughts as well. The way I see it, Jose, it started with 13 of us. Now 6 of us killed the other 6. 4 of us already have. Once we're down to 7, 3 of us will kill the other 3. That leaves an odd man out. Only now we know something is going on, and some of us will be prepared to defend ourselves. That will leave us with 4. So to be the last man standing? Jose asked, seemingly worried. Who says anyone's left standing? Jose didn't like where this was going, but he was still eager to hear the plan. I gave him one last theory before laying it on him. There is a possible that this is some sort of hypnosis. Maybe we aren't killing anybody. Maybe it has a show up there, so whatever this is can make us look like we've killed them. It might be a way of turning us against each other, so we do start killing one another. I don't know, maybe, Jose responded. Now, here's the plan. Start by typing this in the chat. There are 9 out of the 13 on this chat left alive. 2 of you have already woken up to a dead body. We know because we experienced the same thing. 2 of you will kill the other 2. If we join together, I think we can beat this. Let us know if you're willing to meet up with us. If not, at least arm yourself and be prepared for the worst. That's your plan, Robert? Only the beginning. If we can start getting everyone together, maybe we can look out for each other. If someone starts acting funny, we can wake them up or subdue them until it passes. You should at least buy us some time to figure this out. Separated and alone, we're vulnerable. We're easy pickings. Together, we can watch each other's backs. Jose seemed to think this over, then simply nodded in agreement. Right after the message, Bobby Johnson has left the chat room. 3 more people replied. Only 2 agreed to meet us. There were 2 more names on the board who didn't reply. Most likely because they didn't believe me. Unfortunately, one would soon believe and the other would be dead. I shook away these thoughts as I turned the car around and headed to the meeting spot. I had to focus on the ones we could save. An hour later, there were 4 of us. We found an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, and after picking up supplies, we set up shop. We had enough supplies for 3 weeks. The first thing was to reinforce the perimeter. There were 3 of us still out there on their own, and they had to be considered a threat. Xavier Landers just left the chat room. 2 of us out there that had to be considered a threat. We put out a message in the chat room one more time before buckling down, but never got a response. Either the other 2 will come after the 2 of us, or one of us will go after the other. If the pattern continues, that means at least one of us will start seeing the colors. Unless the three out there are intended victims, and three of us may be the next killers. Whatever the case is, if anyone feels an episode coming on, speak up immediately.
What then?
Asked one of the girls who joined us. We need to tie them up immediately. Then, if they black out, we'll attempt to wake them. This way we'll know if the trance or whatever it is can be broken.
What happens if the last one, untied, blacks out?
Jose asked. Then we're all screwed.
And that's the best we have?
Jose questioned once again. That's all we have. Sorry it's not a better plan. The next 2 days were uneventful. We were beginning to think it was over. We got our hopes up too soon. First Jose, then the other two started seeing the colors. I had them all tied up and was trying to keep their attention when their eyes rolled back in their heads. Jose broke free and then the girl. I pulled out the gun Jose had brought with him, but they ignored me completely. The man in the third chair woke up.
Oh shit,
he said rather calmly. They tore him apart as I emptied the .45 into him. He was dead before they dropped, leaving me alone, the gun still shaking in my hand.
Javier Sinjay, Jose Vallarta, and Jill Heaney have left the chat. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't like it. I had to find the last person, and I was going to have to kill them. After that, I'd go to the police and tell them I was suicidal or something so they would lock me up in a psych ward. It all sounded simple enough. Of course, nothing would be that simple. Scared to death and hating myself for what I was about to do, I began my search. I didn't have to wait long to find them. In fact, they found me. I want to make this perfectly clear. I didn't want to kill anybody. I'm not a murderer. I'm not evil or even bad. I wasn't even sure I could go through with it. I could blame Stefan's death on whatever this is, although I would have to live with the responsibility of pushing that damn play button in the first place. I wasn't aware when he was killed. Something else was in control. I don't even remember it happening. This was something different. This was cold-blooded, premeditated murder. I didn't think I could live with that. The two I shot earlier were in defense of someone's life, even though I failed to save them. Not to mention, they would have killed me next. I didn't have time to think about it. I had time to think about this one, though, and it was eating me alive. Then her eyes rolled back in her head and she charged me. It was mostly a reaction. I just began firing as I fell backwards. She was now on top of me. Feeling the weight of her body bearing down on me, I began to panic. I was flailing wildly and trying to reach the gun that I'd dropped when she plowed into me like a linebacker. It took me what must have been a full minute to realize she was no longer moving. That full minute when I thought I was going to die felt like an eternity. Finally, I just rolled her off of me and lay there staring at the ceiling. I must have gone into shock or something akin to it, because it was suddenly night. The extreme stiffness of my body, along with the soreness where my body had made constant contact with the floor, told me I hadn't moved the entire time. Looking at my watch, it had been almost 7 hours. I got up slowly and looked at the bullet-riddled corpse next to me. On top of feeling extremely guilty, I knew I was in big trouble. Who would believe a story this bizarre? I ran for weeks. I thought maybe the cycle had been broken when the intended victim killed the intended killer. I started seeing the colors again. I can't say I ever truly felt a sense of relief, even when I thought it was over. Partly because of guilt, and partly because I knew as long as the murders remained unsolved, it wasn't really over. I wouldn't ever be myself again. I was as lost as a soul could be. I felt so empty. I had become nothing more than a hollow shell of a person. Once upon a time, when I was happy, I was a good person. I never had trouble with the law. I never hurt anyone. I used to volunteer at various charity events and functions. I volunteered once a month at the Children's Hospital. I'd worked hard to get an education and establish myself in a career. I have done everything the way you're supposed to. If you were to ask someone that knew me, I'm sure they would tell you what a good guy I was. I was never a selfish man. I was never mean. I was usually humble and kind. Maybe I wasn't in church every Sunday, but I attended and even participated in church events. When I couldn't make it to church, I would still take time out to reflect and acknowledge God. I didn't lie, I didn't steal, so why me? What had I done other than click on a link in an emergency alert text? What had I done other than click on a link in an emergency alert text? I know I sound like I was having a pity party, but my questions are actually genuine. I wanted something to put my finger on so I could say, there, that's what I did wrong. It's my own fault this had happened to me. I needed to make some sort of sense out of this before I died. At this point, I was seeing the colors more frequently, so I didn't think I had much time left. I really just wanted to know why I was going to die this way. I got another emergency alert. I was actually surprised my work cell was still on. I'd been missing for a month now, and I'm sure the police would have found something linking me to the deaths of the others. Come to think of it, I was surprised they hadn't used my cell phone to track me down. I thought it couldn't be much longer before they did, and at this point, I welcomed the end. The alert contained a link, just like before. At first, I thought if I didn't click on it, it would go away. I soon came to the realization that this thing, whatever it was, would not stop. I looked at the chat room. There were 13 names on it. I typed in, "Don't click the link." It didn't appear on the screen. I could only see one other choice. I would have to turn myself in. I would have to make them see the truth. They had to stop this from happening again. I must have paced back and forth across from the police station for 3 hours. I think I finally got up the nerve to go in. This will be my last post. If you get an emergency message from the WEA with a link, don't click the link. I say wish me luck, but I know I'm out. There's nothing left for me now. If anybody else out there has received one of these alerts, please call the police. Sooner or later, the police will have to look into it. I guess this is goodbye. This is Sheriff's Deputy Russ Cooper. I'm reposting this here in the hopes that you'll take me seriously. For those of you who are following the original post, I will detail what happened to its author. He did come into the station. He did try to explain what was going on. Of course, we didn't believe him. A regret that'll haunt me for whatever time I have left. So here's what happened after he walked into the station. As I said, he tried to explain things, but we didn't believe him. He was moved to an interrogation room and cuffed to a table. He seemed calm enough. A little delusional maybe, but calm. At least that's what we thought at the time. 2 detectives were in the room with him when he started talking about colors. Next thing you know, he starts shaking violently and he rolls his eyes into the back of his head. Mr. Keller broke the chains on his cuff and savagely attacked the detectives, permanently disfiguring one and eviscerating the other until he bled out. Deputies rushed in and used a taser. It was ineffective and Keller rushed in, injuring both deputies badly. He was slamming one deputy's head into a steel table. We came into the room with weapons drawn and ordered him to stop. When he didn't, we opened fire. He ran right at us and finally dropped about 2 feet from us. I checked him for a pulse, even though I had no doubt he was dead after taking 30 rounds. EMTs took out the deputies who were still breathing, and the coroner took care of the rest. As we cleared the room, I found his cell phone. It was open to a chat room. There were 13 names in the chat room window. I'm not sure what's really going on, but after hearing Robert's statement and seeing how it ended, I'm freaking out. If anyone knows anything, I really need the help. I feel like I'm losing my grip on reality. I'm hallucinating, seeing things that aren't there. Colors. Worst of all, my name was one of the 13 in the chat room window. Thank you everyone for listening tonight. That was Scared to Death by Deimos, and I am Deimos. You are listening to Deimos in the Dark. My new book, Welcome to the Dark, is now available on Amazon and Amazon.com. And if you could give us a like, a share, or a follow, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks once again, and I'll see you next time in the dark.
I'd like to give a special thanks to Larry Garcia, Brad Banyashi, Anthony Lozano, and my boy Ray from Mako. Appreciate you guys picking up my book, Welcome from Dark, on Amazon. The support means a lot to me. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast.